Hi everyone. Today is the opening of the King Tut exhibit at the Idaho Discovery Center. So don't miss it. It is a fabulous exhibit. Today's video, we're going to be talking about the archaeology of a site and a tomb. How do you actually know where to dig and why? The first thing is let's define archaeology. Archaeology is really a science, and it's a study of the past using excavation and analysis of artifacts. An example of that would be to determine the development of farming, communities, cities, and also the collapse of civilizations. So how do we know where to dig, either if it's in Egypt or if it's in any state in the United States, is basically the same, but there's different laws governing that. So usually how you know where to dig is you visually can look at something to detect artifacts, so visual observation. That doesn't always work, but sometimes just by chance you may see something visual. The other is using remote sensing, GPR, ground penetrating radar, and other methods to see beneath the surface. Also, you can use aerial views from airplanes and LiDAR, which is lasers that scan the surface and can actually see beneath it. But besides those methods, we also use old records, researching libraries for maps, and also important part is hearsay and word of mouth in the area that's being investigated, like maybe your local residents, old timers that know the existing area. So if permission is given by the landowner, the state, the town, or the federal government, the next test is you dig a test pit to determine what is there. And in that you'll see soil, rocks, artifacts. Some of that may be surface finds, but they're important in letting you know what might be beneath. Then a map is drawn, and a grid square is located by measuring the area. Now you can start with a 1 by 1 square. Then the site is excavating using shovels to scrape the surface, and then you dig to get a little bit deeper, probably 1 to 2 inches each time, marking on your map and also maybe in the site with little flags just how deep you've gone, especially if you see any artifacts or features. Then you use your trowel to carefully remove dirt and noting the precise location of the artifacts. And I'm going to show you today, here is a trowel, and this is my best trowel, and it's a Marshalltown trowel, and this has gone with me to Egypt and any place that I've dug, and it is very convenient to hold, lightweight, and you scrape the surface going down and revealing any artifacts with it. So that's your Marshalltown trowel. Okay, so then one thing to remember when you dig a site is that the context is as important as the artifacts. And why is that? Because the context shows where the people were. And we need to know about how they lived, what they used, their different lifestyles. And then when we're all finished with taking the artifacts out, the site is then backfilled with the dirt that you took out. So the archaeologist then looks at the artifacts for features, human activity. We also look at the site for fire pits and all vertical features. And then after that, the site is backfilled again. So artifacts are taken from a site, and usually, depending on where you are, as in pottery, they're usually washed, weighed, analyzed, and then drawn a picture of to put into the record. And usually you measure them also. So how is dating determined? Well, dating can be determined by what's actually around the site, and if there's any other relevant sites that have already been excavated maybe many years ago. But radiocarbon dating is also used. Now this is a method that uses the rate of decay of carbon in C12 to 14 to determine age. It's only effective, though, up to 68,000 years. So the institution that's affiliated with the archaeologist and the team then writes up a report for publication. If the artifacts are significant and they show cultural habitation for an area, a special report is done with photographs or drawings of the artifacts, measuring them, and also assigning them typology. So that's basically excavating a site. Now, as far as a tomb, the tomb is excavated much the same way. Tomb entrances have been found by holes in the sand, crevices in the rock, so it's a little bit different than just, digging to find something. And once you find that entrance, then the tomb itself has to be excavated much the same way, including the floor, but a lot of times there's, a room can be filled with debris and dirt and artifacts up to the ceiling. So it takes quite a while to do that. Wall inscriptions are also read in a tomb, photographed, and drawn to study. The age of a tomb, of course, can be determined by its location, and if you find hieroglyphs with a name on it or a cartouche, which is a royal name, then you can have some indication of what date the tomb was and maybe who it belonged to. So age is determined by location. For example, Valley of the Kings. You may see visual carvings or paintings on tomb walls. Now, there are laws to protect all archaeological sites. The Archaeological Resource Protection Act of 1979 is referred to as ARPA, and that has been amended, but it governs the archaeological excavation sites on federal and Indian lands in the United States. Also, it's a guide for the removal and disposition of archaeological collections from those sites. So that wraps up our talk on excavation and archaeology of sites and a tomb. So tune in next week for the next video. Thanks.